Hello, this is video log entry 159 and it's about 11 a.m. CST. I was supposed to post a video yesterday and I didn't, but only because I don't really have a good excuse really. I was being lazy and but I did start my dopamine detox. I think I did the same thing last year because my brain was all kinds of fried. I had no focus at all, and I'm trying to do the same thing this year because I had for the past like 3 to 4 months I was basically frying my brain with random YouTube videos, and I can see the effects of me not being productive when it comes to actually using my mind just by trying to code, and my brain's like, no, it just doesn't want to focus. And I'm hoping if I quit frying my brain with YouTube and just doom scrolling on there, I'll be better focusing, because goddamn, my brain is like, it's just fucked. I should have started probably by the beginning of this December, last December, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. I was being irresponsible, and so I guess better late than never. So I guess I'll be doing the same thing I did last year, even though I didn't. I wish I just continued doing it. I don't know, like when I started working, I got into a bad habit of just killing my brain cells after going to work and whatnot during the summer and whatnot. I just didn't. I don't know. I just didn't have the energy, I guess. So I decided to fry my brain instead of doing anything remotely productive. So I'm hoping, yeah. Anyways, like I guess since I didn't post a video yesterday, I'll post 2 videos. I'm going to do this video log, and then I'm probably going to post a video on just the general progress I've had. I don't know. Like I was thinking about like doing live streams and whatnot, but I'm also not comfortable with the environment that I'm in, and I don't want to bore people with reading SDL documentation, because there's so many goddamn APIs or API functions, and for me at least, it takes me as I don't like having to memorize them. I know a lot of people. Again, like I'm the kind of person that just goes really slow at first, and then I start picking up the pace once I have a general overlay of the structure that I'm using, and I have a better. And I was also looking at like what I haven't never really done a legitimate C project before, or C++ project, and I had to look at like how to structure and whatnot. I don't want to. I'd rather do a good job than a shitty job. But you can go the other way around and actually just do a shitty job and just fix it. Which I think is probably a good tactic too. It's just, what is it, fail hard, learn fast, or is it fail fast, learn hard? Yeah, fail hard, learn fast is a common phrase that people use, and so I'm hoping, maybe I should do that as opposed to always being careful, because I remember I just spent like a good 30 minutes just staring at the code this morning. I was like, but it's still unfamiliar to me, and so basically the tutorial I was looking at wasn't really the greatest because they didn't use a render data structure. They were using their way of making a game was actually using the CPU as opposed to the GPU, but I prefer to just get used to the habit of actually just using the GPU and whatnot. So I had to just clean up the code a little bit, and I cleaned up the general structure of the project, and I had to make a bunch of folders, and it's kind of annoying to get used to because of again all the fucking annoying curly braces. Again, I'm being pessimistic. I need to stop being pessimistic, but I'm using VS Code as well because, again, it's better to use VS Code for bigger projects, and I prefer to just start using VS Code as opposed to being an NVim addict. But yeah, so I'm doing fine. But my brain is still kind of still mushy. It's like it's just annoying. I really hope my brain just quits being mushy for a little bit, because I want to be productive again, and yeah, I'm being somewhat productive. I'm just not being as productive as I'd like to be, but it's whatever. I'm doing something at the very least, as opposed to just sitting in bed and being lazy. And again, I'm also looking for more jobs as well. So I'm hoping I can get a remote job pretty soon, but we'll see. Fingers crossed, I guess. And I don't know, my brain's just bleh. Yeah, so I guess today, since I told myself I'd do it, at least when it comes to SDL2, I told myself that I'd at least create a sprite initialization process, and I'm going to probably just split the same PNG that I use, since I have a library for dealing with PNGs, JPEGs, and different image extensions, as opposed to the BMP, because the base SDL2 library doesn't come with JPEG, JPG, PNGs support and whatnot. So I had to get that myself, and I figured that took me a second because I was scouring the internet, even though there was a quick fix to the general. I think this happens a lot in technology, especially if you're new to this kind of stuff, where you haven't had the necessary experience to understand certain areas. Say you go online and sometimes you may not even find it because it's seemingly trivial. But for somebody like me that's a noob and that doesn't even know how to use G++ or GCC as much, or doesn't have the... Yeah, anyways, it took me a second, but I had some issues with the SDL2 underscore image library that... yeah, so I figured out. I was just, I'm being... it's just like I'm kind of bashing myself for taking so long to figure one simple error out. But yeah, anyways, whatever, it happens. It happens all the time. I'd hope. Or maybe it's just me. It could just be me. Sometimes I don't see things. Yeah, and it's just like, I guess if I had to explain it, the library that I was using, I had the include for it, but I forgot to use a linker for it, and it was just me not putting the linker in there with the library, because the library wasn't in the project folder, it was in the local folder, the standard user / lib folder, where all of the shared objects are located at. But my brain was just being silly, and it's whatever. So that took me a little bit yesterday. It took me like an hour and a half or something, and then I started thinking about, I was like, well, this sucks, because everybody's saying that you should be using render as opposed to using surfaces, and supposedly if you use the renderer as opposed to blending surfaces on surfaces, because if you're doing surface stuff and you're using the CPU, you had to put a general surface over the window. You would think that you wouldn't have to put a surface over the window, but I guess there are quote-unquote two methods, and one of them is a CPU process, and part of the CPU process is initializing a surface over the window and then having another surface over that surface. I don't know. That was just whatever. I question everything, and I could just move on from questioning everything and, actually creating, but, that's just me. That's me being me, apparently. And, so the renderer is a lot easier, and I have a general idea of how to make a sprite. I also asked Perplexity about it and whatnot, because, again, there's so many nuanced things for SDL2 where you have to, the way you load an image is by putting it on a surface and then transferring that surface, or that image, or transferring that surface that has that image on it. I guess the way to think of a surface is just like an array of some sort that contains that information of the image or pixelated thing or BMP or whatever kind of data it is. I don't know. I just think it seems roundabout to me, but again, I don't understand all the hardware components and why the SEL does that and whatnot, and in most tutorials they don't explain any of that, because they just care about having boilerplate to just make a project, as opposed to questioning all the processes involved and whatnot. Basically you had to use an image load function to load it onto a surface and then transfer that image from the surface to a texture. And then the texture, it's kind of like, I didn't look at the data structure for the texture, but I'm assuming it's just a same. I actually don't understand what a texture really is. I don't want to say anything until I know what it is, but that's another kind of data structure. It's called SDL underscore texture as opposed to SDL underscore surface. So I don't know the exact reason or difference between the two. I don't want to say anything. So I'm not going to say anything until I know what it is, but you transfer to a texture, and then apparently you have to then create a rectangle for the rectangle is where the texture is going to be quote-unquote blitted on or transferred into, because it has a certain size and position within the window, and that data structure, they already have an SDL underscore rec, so might as well use their data structure. And yeah, so that's basically how you initialize a sprite image into a window. It seems so roundabout, but that's just how they do it, and it is what it is. I'm not going to say anything, and I'm sure they have a good reason for it, and I'd like to know. I may have to go on the SDL forums to understand why they do any of that. Yeah, so I mean, it's just, and then basically there's another function after, because it's not blitted on the screen until you throw in the function called SDL underscore render copy, I believe. Yeah, render copy. And render copy actually blits it onto the screen after the variables have been modified to then blit onto the screen, because you have a game loop, and you have I was also dealing with key events and whatnot and trying to understand that, and I guess the key events have their own hex codes and whatnot. So if you hit a key, that goes into the poll event something, and that just kind of just, so you have like a stack queue, and then that's why you have a while loop within a while loop, because you have the game while loop, and then you have an event while loop, and the only time it goes into that event while loop is when an event is instantiated, and events are instantiated when you hit a key combination, and then so it goes through that. So that's why they have the address of E, because E changes, it's 0 or 1, I guess, and somewhere in memory of there has been an event, and then that while loop goes into there, and then you can have a bunch of switch cases, and these events basically have their own hexadecimal for key combinations. There's a hexadecimal for the escape key, which I actually put into the game program, and yeah, so I did that, and then of course you can then have a switch case for that. I guess that's probably the best way to do it. You could embed a bunch of ifs, but I guess you're comparing one thing to everything else. And yeah, so then of course it goes through those cases, and then you can create conditionals for each key event and whatnot, and then you can call it function or whatever. So standard game stuff. I have a general idea of how that works because I've messed around with Pygame and whatnot, and it's just that C is a little bit different. SDL is completely different from what I've seen, because it's a bit closer to the hardware, I guess. So you see a lot of initialization events that you would see, and then you just kind of blit those into an initialization event. And so I separated my code through having a sprite function and the source code, and there's going to be main, of course, and I have a resources folder, and then I also have my include folder, and then the include contains all the variables. I have like the global headers, and then I have headers for like the sprite headers, and then I'm going to have other headers that I can just put there, so the main function knows that those functions is just how the compiler works, and it's a lot harder in comparison to coding in Python, but I decided to do this, and I like C for whatever reason, even though I get annoyed with it a lot. But I still like it for whatever reason. I like C and C++. I like C a lot more. So yeah, I don't know, I'm already explaining it, so I guess maybe I won't do a video on an update of the code that I've been working on. It's just like, again, like I said, it's going to be boring watching me just stare at code and reading. I've also been kind of cross-referencing between a bunch of GitHub pages that actually, because I want to have a good idea of how to actually program, as opposed to just, again, jumping in and just like writing a bunch of code and then it being a complete mess and then you having to refactor over and over again. I'd rather get a little bit closer to the bullseye, as opposed to being like way off and not looking at different examples of how to write code in SDL2 with C. So I'm looking at a bunch of examples, and I'm reading a bunch of examples, so I'll have a good idea. And I think I have a general understanding of how it works for the most part. Another thing I was thinking about was like, well, the main function is also really long. I mean, you have the init functions in there as well, and maybe I'll make another file that contains the init and other like general, I guess, sys processes. So you have the init, and then there's like a close function as well, or I don't know. I'd rather just abstract that away, and then you can look at those different processes just to look at the quote-unquote SDL sys functions, or subsystem. Maybe I'll just call it subsystem.cpp, because then that'll just have all the SDL subsystem function calls in there, and it'll just be abstracted away, and the main function will look a lot cleaner. And then the main function, I think, I'll just have my game loop, and then maybe I'm thinking I'm thinking that maybe even for the event while loop, I'll have that in the subsystem folder, and then I'll just have all the main game logic and where all the other code is called for rendering and modifying the sprite and then rendering a couple of other small things. But I want to keep my main.cpp file pretty clean, and maybe I don't know. I don't really know of good programming protocols. So, but it seems better than just doing what other people. I've seen other people just like, I don't know, like it's just the way that some people code, and the tutorials I've been reading it did not look like good programming etiquette, if I had to say so myself. Again, this is me just being picky and methodical about everything, but again, that's just how my brain works. So, yeah, it just didn't look like good programming etiquette. And even the tutorial copy and paste was like, this is an absolute mess. This is, I don't know why anybody would have made this kind of code. But I mean, what would you expect, I guess? I think it's normal for people not to be really too focused on the actual presentation of the code and cleanliness of it. Maybe I'm wrong, but a lot of the code that I've seen on the internet looks pretty messy and just not really well thought. Yeah, I don't know. Like if I had a, I don't think I could ever be a George Hotz because of my brain works. Like George Hotz is like, he just dives right in and he does. I don't know. It's inspiring to see, but it's just not how I am. Like I like the things he does. He just jumps right in. He just learns things on the spot, and he just figures out as he goes, and then he refactors and refactors and refactors. And I've seen some of his streams and whatnot, and he's also, I mean, like he's been programming since he was 8, and obviously he's very intelligent and good at what he does and whatnot. He's also had a lot of experience, so I don't like comparing myself to somebody like that. So it's nice to see him do it, and he is also an inspiration to some degree because of course, anybody that's good at something, at least from my eyes, I would like to be somewhat capable of doing, and it may not just be in the along the caliber of George Hotz, obviously. Yeah. So aside from that, I don't have anything else really going on. Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I get a little bit ambitious about like doing things for the, I don't know. I felt like I was being a little bit ambitious in a couple of videos ago when I mentioned I was gonna, stream every day for at least an hour when it came to programming. But my brain is just, it's not into it. I just can't. I don't know. I can't really say much. So I may just give updates until, I think again, like I said, in the future when I'm more comfortable with programming and my environment and when it becomes more streamlined and I have a good feel of like what my workflow is, I think I'll do more programming streams and videos that are uncut. But as of now, I think if I did make videos on me actually programming, they may have to be edited because, again, it would be boring watching some guy sit there staring at code, trying to figure everything out and having a bunch of errors spat out at him, and then a rookie coming in and looking at me actually trying to program, and he's like, yo, bro, that's not how you do it. It's like, well, I'm sorry, I'm a noob. I don't want anybody to take me seriously. I'm a noob. I've only programmed in college. I've done minor scripts here and there for Python and Bash, and I'm not even close to the caliber of a junior developer to any extent, or a senior. Obviously not a senior. But yeah, so yeah, I think I'm just gonna fuck around with SDL2 and try not to be pessimistic all the time. I'm doing better. It's just like some days I don't know. Like I can't even explain what's in my head right now. It's just kind of indifferent as of now. So it's hard to get excited about things at times. But I can go through my chore list, and SDL2 is feeling like a chore, even though if I were in a normal mood, then I would actually be excited about this stuff because this stuff is exciting. It's just sometimes my brain doesn't register it as exciting because of my partially because I've been jamming I don't know. I can't think of words right now. Yeah. I think it's just the fact that I've been on my phone a lot, way too much. I think I wouldn't say my brain is damaged, but there's a lot of brain rot as of now, and I've mitigated brain rot before, and I'm going through the same fucking process. You know, you think I've learned my lesson. You think I would have learned my lesson by now, but no. I have not. But yeah, it's not just brain rot, it's other things. Probably neurochemical imbalances, and yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to get back into a stable baseline for normal functioning in the world, so yeah. Anyways, I don't want to bore you guys to death. Have a great day. Bye.